Constant attacks on South Africa's judges can potentially erode the integrity of the judiciary as an institution. That's according to the Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa. It's calling on critics of the judiciary to follow the appropriate channels to lodge their complaints. And we're joined now, in fact, by its chairperson of the Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa, Nasreen Rajab Budlender, joining us via our video line. Nasreen, good morning. Thanks very much for your time this morning. Certainly a number of attacks on the judiciary taking place over the past few weeks, past few months. And I would say the most recent of these certainly has been that of retired constitutional judge Johan Kriegler. A lot of analysts coming out that saying even what he had to say about Judge John Hlophe regarding the Bongani Bongo case, it also qualifies as an attack on the judiciary.
Yes, good morning, Michelle, and thanks for having me. PABASA issued a statement in a principled manner, not to respond simply to Judge Kriegler's comments about Judge Hlophe, not to respond to any other specific comments, but really because as a bar of advocates, we are concerned that we remind South Africans about the importance of the judiciary as an institution. It provides a check not just on individual conduct, but on the conduct of the executive and of Parliament. And so we really want to remind South Africans that one of the strengths and beauties of our Constitution is that it creates processes for dealing with a variety of complaints against every branch of government, and in certain cases against individuals. The independence of the judiciary is not important just for today or for this political and social context that we find ourselves in, but it's important for the future. So really making allegations against judges without substance and without following a due process could be very harmful to the very core of our constitutional democracy. So that was the purpose in us issuing a statement. We certainly do not say that judges should not be criticized. That's not at all our view. Judges, we recognize, are human. And as humans, they may err. And that's why our judicial system sets up a process for dealing with errors by judges, either in the context of legal errors, where you have appeals and reviews, or where there is an allegation against a judge that he or she has committed some kind of misconduct. Then we have the Judicial Service Commission. So really our view is to say South Africans, all South Africans, politicians, individual citizens, the Constitution provides the processes that we should use to protect ourselves and our country, and we should be using those processes.
Yeah, and as you say, it's not unusual that there is disagreement from various quarters about a decision from a judge around a particular issue. But when it comes to just gratuitous comments and statements being made regarding the judiciary in general and particular judges, Nasreen, what does that do for the confidence, I suppose, of ordinary South Africans in our judicial system?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. The judiciary daily deals with thousands of cases. Very few of those cases are political in nature. And in truth, the vast majority of cases that pass through our courts are dealt with fairly, justly, expeditiously. And so really we must recognize that, and we must say that where judges fall foul of the rules that they have to follow, because in fact they are rules. The judiciary are not an institution that may not be touched, so to speak, or may not be criticized. Where they fall foul of those rules, then criticism of judges is healthy. It's part of engaging in our constitutional democracy. So we encourage South Africans to read judgments, to engage with judgments. But really what we must guard against is attacks against the institution, the judiciary, or against individual judges without proper substantiation of those attacks. Because what happens is that if you can simply make allegations against judges without substantiating, without following a due process and putting a complaint to the Judicial Service Commission supported by evidence, then actually it erodes confidence in the judiciary, and there may be genuine cases that then go unchecked, uninvestigated.
Yeah.
So that's our concern.
And I suppose it is a delicate balance, this idea on the one hand that the judiciary itself is not above the law. It is, as we know, subject to the law, subject to the Constitution. And then on the other hand, having that vibrancy that comes with criticism, with lodging complaints in the right way through the JSE, but also juggling that with building confidence in this incredibly important part of our constitutional democracy.
Yes, I think that's correct. And that is why we say engage with our judiciary, engage with our judgments, criticize where there's reason to do so, but where there are complaints, follow due process to do that.
In terms of, when criticism is leveled against, perhaps it is an individual judge or general criticism against the judiciary that are very clearly coming from a political sort of domain. It's very clearly, perhaps to some people, that it is a political play, so to speak. How does the JSE, in terms of how it works, Nasreen, how does it negotiate that kind of scenario?
Yes. Well, for one thing, where there are complaints against judges, those complaints go as in the first instance to the Judicial Conduct Committee. And so where misconduct of judges is being considered, the political appointees to the Judicial Service Commission don't sit on that committee. So that is an attempt by the constitutional drafters to separate politics and political interests from the judiciary. Now, of course, there are instances where, and we've seen it recently, where judges are accused of taking political positions. And certainly we've seen around the world where judges have been compromised in other countries for ignoring the law that they're required to follow, and rather making judgments to achieve a particular political objective. Now, if there are grounds for anyone in South Africa to think that is happening, those instances should be reported to the Judicial Service Commission.
Yeah. And
if the Judicial Service Commission is considered not to be doing its job, then we approach the courts.
Yeah. I mean, it's heartening, isn't it, that there is even that check and that balance when it comes to holding our judiciary accountable.
Yes, absolutely. And that is the very system that the Constitution sets up, one of checks and balances on every branch of government.
Nasreen, thank you very much for coming onto the show this morning. Incredibly important discussion, I think, as we talk about attacks that erode the credibility of our judiciary. Nasreen Rajab Budlender is chairperson of the Pan-African Bar Association of South Africa. Thanks very much indeed.